everybody knows that we announced last week that we are helping the Design Network launch their new e-design platform. And this is one of the tools that is available on their platform is this Roomstyler. And I only know how to do 2D. I don't really do 3D. So I can't wait to see what Albie comes up with. But she's really mastered how to not only do the Roomstyler, but also work it into what you've done. You have your new YouTube channel, which is amazing. Yeah, so we're excited to see how you can not only use this free tool on the Design Network, but also leverage it.
Okay, perfect. So I am Albie. My full name's Albertha Boabang, in case you ever went looking for me in the group, but everyone calls me Albie. So I am Albie. I have been an independent designer just shy of 3 years now. I work exclusively in the online space, and that is by choice. It fits my personality as an introvert, and it fits our lifestyle. I am also a mom. My daughter's about to be 3. My husband works for the state of Washington and is also in the National Guard. So that's where the lifestyle piece comes in. At any given moment, we just might not be here. So it kind of just works out. I can work wherever there is Wi-Fi. I also launched and created my own subscription box that is currently waitlisted because I love to shop, and it was a great way for me to shop for people and get in their homes. And when I'm not designing or chasing my daughter, I am getting my master's degree because I didn't have enough on my plate, so why not?
Yeah, and just so people know, this is if you're new to the Design Network in Furnishing South, they do have over 1,000 brands. They have tens of thousands of, upholstery case pieces and that. And they, if you can go to the Design Network's latest podcast episode with Jason Harris, you will hear how they are onboarding a new, all of the furniture right now for their e-design platform, and they have a new product management system that they're incorporating. So this is all being worked on right now. So just to let you know, in case you aren't familiar with the Design Network in Furniture Land South.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I don't want to assume everyone's using the same things. So I typically use Chrome. I've also used it in Safari. So it does work flawlessly on both. But once you are on the Design Network and you're logged in, you would see this plan option, and that is what brings you to the Roomstyler. And I'm just going to kind of walk through it from jump. So you would have the option to start a room from scratch, start with a furnished room. This is not a feature I have used, but it is literally a room that they have already created and demoed just for whatever purposes you might find that useful. And then you can open up a saved room. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And we are going to be editing this bedroom. Now, the basic requirements, assuming that you're using this based off of another design, you would already have like measurements for your walls and windows and all that jazz. But again, because this is not necessarily a software that is specifically for like architecture or construction, you can enter your measurements, but they won't be to like the exact eighth, right, or whatever that fraction is. However, you can play with the thickness and the height and the general width. So if this wall needed to be 13 feet and 1/16 inch, we're just gonna let it live at the 13 feet.
Right.
So you would draw out your walls. You do have the option to choose room shapes that are already existing, and you would just drag it into the project. We don't need that, so we're just gonna undo that girl right there. But you could also draw out your own walls. So let's say you just needed to create a random wall off to the side. You could easily go ahead and do that. So the drawing of the walls, really basic, really simple. And the same goes for doors and the windows. You would just drag them into the project and adjust the measurements once you drag them in. So I've already dragged in this window, but if I needed to adjust it because it's actually a 4-foot wide window, I could easily go ahead and do that. Same with the different types of doors. So this is a closet door. So for this particular one, I chose the folding door, whereas this is the entry to the bedroom. So it is the single door, and you can play with the hinges, again, the widths, the heights, the directions, the trim finishes. So it does give you a pretty in-depth amount of options to really bring that conception to life. So now you got your basics, your walls, your doors, your windows, flooring. I always have a great time with all of these kind of finishes. They do have a number of flooring options. This particular room had parquet flooring, so I went straight to wood, and parquet happens to be, right, well, herringbone listed there happens to be an option, so I can just drag it, drop it, and it would change it. Now, you cannot, like I said, because this isn't like a reflection of a specific catalog, you can't necessarily search for a specific type of wood or finish. So it would really, and this is where time and patience does become a factor. You would be kind of just really searching the catalog to see what best aligns with your design. The other finish options, there are carpet. And again, there's a variety. I think it's a pretty extensive catalog for even if you're not getting an exact match to whatever you spec for your product, you are going to get pretty daggone close for the client to be impressed and to get the overall vision of the design. For tiles, which is great for flooring and backsplashes. So you will see options. I mean, this isn't a bathroom or a kitchen, but you will see options for like subway tiles of different widths, different patterns. So if I was getting really funky with the flooring, I could just choose that tile, drag it and drop it. And there's the flooring. Right here in this corner, you're gonna see what starts to form your room in a more 3D way. It's not the final image, but you can see how your room is starting to take shape. So you would just click the little square with the arrows and it would widen it for you. And this would give you an idea. Mine has a delay with the rendering, so that's why my floor still looks like the original floor. But you would see how it starts to come together. And if you really wanted to see it in a more photorealistic kind of way, you would take the 3D photo. This is great, one, if you just really want to see how it's coming together, but two, if you're using it for like content, like video or Instagram or whatever, and you wanted to show like the progress steps of your design, you could take 3D photos along the way and kind of show how you went from bare walls to trying different bed types to whatever it is that, depending on, again, your content plan. So you have options for flooring, you have options for paint. I don't think it's based on any particular palette, but you do get a pretty wide range of color options. You may not find the exact like name, but you can go, okay, this gray looks pretty close to it. To paint your walls, you would just grab it and it gives you the option to decorate all the walls. So it would paint all of them. The ceiling, it would just paint the ceiling. Or if you just needed this one wall done, you would go to that wall. Once it turns blue, you let it go, and that would be the wall that is then changed to that color.
Nice.
And as you go along, you would start to see your little viewfinder in the corner change to render. Every time it does that, that means it's updating it to whatever it is that you just did. So yeah, these are just like, so basic finishes would be under this first like pencil here. I mean, building under the pencil, finishes would be under the paintbrush. Same thing with wallpaper. Where I live is really in the carpet, paint, tile, wallpaper, wood. But depending on your project, you may find a need for stone and the other guys in there. If I needed one wall to be painted, but like this wall to have black backsplash, it would need to be a split wall the way these two are split. But if it was a wall like this that wasn't split by another wall, you could just hit this little green guy here and break the wall. this is a bedroom, but we'll do it anyway. So let's say, so this wall has wallpaper and my client is just really funky and cool like that. And they're like, I only want wallpaper on one half of my headboard. We can just drag and change that other half to be painted. And you'll see that it changed on my side render here. I'll make it bigger so you can see that it's split. So that is something that is really handy.
I was wondering if you could show again real quick. Did you just right click on the wall to split it?
No, so I just regular click it. I think, oh, I'm using a trackpad, but I think it's a regular click. And so once it's highlighted blue, you'll see the X deletes it, and then the little green guy is to break it in half. And it'll break it square down the middle, but like if it needed to be like a shorter wall, you could then drag the circle, pull it out, like whatever the wall needed to be doing. Furniture, that's this guy here, the couch. So to Alyssa's point, and similar to like the finishes, so you will be able to choose accessories, so things like decorative pieces, artwork, rugs, mirrors. It does take a bit of getting used to maybe see where things land under, because for example, you might see bedroom and think, oh, I'll go straight to bedroom. But then there's also like a furniture category that also has bedroom furniture underneath it. So it takes a little bit of kind of
just playing with it. Do it.
Yeah. To kind of see where whatever you're looking for may or may not live. So bedroom, in a very broad sense, will include the furniture, but also include bedding, for example, and things like that. Whereas the furniture and then bedroom furniture will just be the furniture. Generally speaking, they have a pretty good breakdown of the categories. We're gonna just head into bedroom furniture. You can put in search words, very broad search words if you were so inclined. So like when I'm searching in accessories, for example, I'll put in the search bar gold, because I just want to see all the gold accessories that they have. Or if I just want to see all the gold everything, I wouldn't even break it down to accessories. I would just type in gold. But again, you wouldn't be searching for like the, hooker furniture bench or things like that. You do have the option to filter also by color. So that comes in really handy for like, again, those like larger staple items. So like I knew in this room it was going to be a black bed. So I went to beds, and the first thing I did was change the color to black. So this kind of just keeps me from having to scroll through way more beds. So that number went from how many hundreds it was before to just 76. I had a project with a navy blue desk, and after going through about 4 of these blues, I said, screw that, and just typed in blue desk. So you just kind of have to be, like I said, patient, and just kind of be willing to play around with it, and depending on the item, see what works. For a black bed, however, I knew I could just pick the darkest black, and it's going to give me what I needed. I kind of just went through, and you hover over the items, and you'll see that it'll like give you the size, whether it's a full or twin. This bed has a bookcase as part of the headboard, and you'll be able to kind of see all those features. Again, even if it's not the same brand, it'll be a great representation of whatever is actually specified. And the same goes for pretty much all large furnishings that you're looking for. You do want to make sure you clear the color, or everything you search for afterwards will continue to be
great tip black. Because I would totally just keep doing it that way and get very frustrated.
I make these mistakes so I can share them later. Yes. After searching for, I think it was like a pink rug, and then every search I did after that, I was like, why is everything pink? And it was because the pink was still there. So you do want to make sure, unless you are searching, so like I left the black when I was looking for this black bookcase and this black desk, black shelves. I left it there because I knew that is what I was looking for. One thing I want to show you guys is the rugs. The rugs are under accessories. And because 9 times out of 10, you're probably not designing a room without a rug. So I just wanted to kind of point out that that's under the rugs. I do love that the rugs are broken down in options. So for the larger rug, I actually just kind of scrolled and went through and looked for that rug, and it just so happened it was like close to the top.
Real quick before we go too far, can you resize the rugs?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. So you will see the dimensions when you choose the rug. For some of them, you'll also see it while you're hovering over the rug. So this particular one says it's 9 by 12. Oh, I needed a 9 by 12 in smoke. This is perfect. But some will either not say it at all, and then some will be in centimeters. I can't find one right now. But once you choose it, you can either kind of just drag it and just see how big it is. And then once you select it, it'll show you in the information bar exactly the size, but you can't adjust it. A good amount of these rugs, there are more than one option. So if you see two of this one, one's the 6 by 9, one's the 4 by 6. So you're not necessarily just stuck with, oh, this is the perfect teal and yellow rug, but I only have the 4 by 6. Now, if you needed an 8 by 10, it's somewhere. It might just not be next to it. So like I said, for most of these rugs, I have seen that they do come in multiple sizes, but you can't search by size. That is something that
I would imagine that if you typed in the size, it would only bring up the ones that were labeled specifically like what you typed in.
Yes. So if I were to type in 8 by 10, I'm going to only get the ones that say 8 by 10. I may get the ones that say 8 feet by 10 feet, but I may also just get the ones that literally say 8 by 10. But if this rug wasn't there, I would just use a gray rug.
Okay.
And then rely on my 2D design board. Or you can do after work in Photoshop and kind of replace this. But that's, again, if you're a tinkerer like me. If you're like, I don't want to do anything after this, then so that kind of just, again, comes down to how in depth you want to go with it. And same goes for like the mirrors, like the pillows, which would be under cushions. So they would be under the cushions, bean bags, and throws, specifically the cushions. That is where you would find your throw pillows. Same thing, you can narrow it down by color. You can put in velvet. So let's say I really wanted a velvet pillow that was black. This at least kind of helped me, and obviously the assortment is very small, but this kind of really helped me kind of not have to navigate through however many pillows are actually in the catalog.
Now, when you're searching within the categories, is it, I would imagine there's some trial and error to it, but do you know if there's something specific that you can say, can you say mid-century and it pops something up? Or is it just depending completely on whether or not the Roomstyler people, separate from TDN, the Roomstyler people have classified it as?
Correct. So it's not like, if it's labeled as mid-century desk, for example, then, you know, then it's something that you would, like, if in their tagging, it would, like, so these came up because whether it was on the back end or the front end, they were tagged as something mid-century. But that's not to say you may not be missing another couple hundred items that aren't tagged that way. Now, when you put in the search, if you can leave this up here and then kind of from there, keep that search to make sure it kind of like helps narrow things down, but it's not as precise as it is though in a furniture catalog. It's the choosing the furniture is as tedious as it is in real life. So if you don't enjoy specifying in real, you'll enjoy this part less. But now we've dragged our rugs, we've dragged our bed. Same thing for lighting. Lighting was another one I didn't mention. It has its own category, which is pretty robust. We've dragged all our lighting. We have all that stuff. This guy here, like, I haven't touched on him very much. This is your camera. This is where the magic happens. Love this guy here. So you have 3 camera angles. I rarely use the wide angle unless it's a huge space. So for example, that space, that's the main image for this webinar. I used the wide angle for that one because I wanted to show the dining room and the living room.
Right.
Typically, I live in the normal because it gives me a pretty good view. So whatever lands in this triangle is what you're going to be seeing. But two, the wide angle can distort this. Like, so in a small space like this, the wide angle, and you'll see it start to change over here, makes it look a little wonky. So I typically live in the normal. Zoom is really great for those like detailed shots. So like something that kind of is reminiscent of a photo shoot in your space. So that's what the camera does. And you can play around with the heights of the camera and kind of drag it down to the floor. So if you want to, again, I'm living in Zoom, I want to show the detail of, you know, the footboard for whatever reason. I can do that. If I wanted to kind of do a really cool overhead shot, I could tilt the camera downward from the very top and do that. So the camera will be what kind of, you are a photographer with this camera, pretty much. And as you go along, you will see the changes happening here. If you are fine with this representation as you play along with it, great. But let's say you're like, no, Albie, give me the good goods. You would hit the take 3D photo. Actually, let me back up a little bit because there's two places you could play with lighting and I skipped one. The light bulb controls all the lighting that's in the room because this is what makes or break a rendering. I have a professor who would drill that into my head. That is the lighting is the difference between a rendering and a photorealistic rendering. Mm-hmm. Here is where you can decide. So like I have one table lamp on this bookcase. I have a floor lamp in this corner. I have two sconces above the bed and then a flush mount at the top of the room. I can decide, I typically leave all the lights on, like honestly, unless it just really kind of distorts the look. And then I'll just play around with, I don't need to show these at their full capacity, for example. I can just kind of lower how intense those are. But you know what? I really want to kind of give them an idea of what it would look like because she doesn't turn on her overhead light much. So you know what? I'm going to turn this one off. You can also change the nighttime feature, again, depending on what you're conveying to your client. And this is also, like I said, great for if you're just really wanting a robust portfolio in the way that a photographer would do.
Yeah.
I want her to see what it would look like at night, kind of ambient lighting, her overhead lights off, but she has her sconces on low, her floor lamp on in the corner, and her table lamp on under the TV. So you can play around with those features. I never touched the altitude. I made that mistake once. I leave it at high. I played with the other ones and everything came out black after a while. So, and typically I leave it at northeast, but again, if you have like a client where that is a concern, they don't know how the paint's gonna look, how anything's gonna look, then you would change this. So that is where you play with the lighting. Now you're gonna go hop into the render. This is the other place you play with the lighting. The default is always set to normal. I tend to live between the normal and the high. High can wash it out a bit. So kind of a safe place in between, kind of, it's like a filter almost. Mm-hmm. So it illuminates it in a way that's still realistic. So I tend to kind of hover here, but this will vary based on the paint colors you choose, the floor finishes, and all that jazz. These really quickly, make room public just means it shows up immediately in your TDN profile. Keep private means it doesn't. And then you know
when you're just playing with something, you don't want to make it public if it looks like poop.
Crap. Or if it's just a work in progress and like it's just like, oh, I'm not ready to share this with the world yet. And it will ask you about your room, so you can label it however you choose to label it. If you're playing around, is it a real property? Yes or no. Like these are all optional. They don't make or break the design. And then you would save. It will only ask you that, if I'm not mistaken, upon like your first tinker with that. So now the thing I learned last week, and this is how I do it, I will open 2 tabs. So the 3D room is where all your renderings live, and you can go see them at once. So I will open a new tab with the same plan. But instead of going to edit the room, I will be going to view the room. It opens a separate window that's not in my plan. And this is the image that we just rendered. So remember, I did it at nighttime. I turned off the overhead lights, so you get this darker image.
Just a soft picture.
Yes. But this is the final photorealistic version. Below, I think I mentioned this, you'll see the actual real life, those items that you dragged, they do belong somewhere. This is a Design Within Reach sconce. These are real items that can be purchased. This is a real IKEA mirror. So if your client did have the IKEA, whatever it's called, mirror, you can actually say, yes, it'll work on this wall. And then these 3 dots here would be where you would download the image directly to your computer. You would click that, it downloads, and it's the image without the tagging. So like you wouldn't see the arrows and all, so you get the clean image. I saved a few playing around with them last night. So when I go into the keynote, I'll show you what those look like. So I close this tab. So I always keep this tab open so that for every new render, I'll make 1 more render. Let me turn the lights back on, first of all, so you guys can see that. So for every new render I create, it will update this page. So it's not creating like on that particular page, it's not creating a like slideshow of images. There is a place where you can see the history of all your renders. And then from there, you could decide which ones you want to share with your profile and all that jazz. So I'm going to grab 1 more render to show you guys just how you would switch from renders to not. In the meantime, any questions?
Let's see. Elle asked if TDN's update will all of the product items now be linked to their website and not other vendors. Elle, I'm not sure. That's going to be something that we're going to have to check with them. I don't know that much about all of the levels. I know it's a super involved process getting all of that ready.
Right, because I know like when I used to work for a furniture showroom, we used Icovia, for example.
Yes.
And when we first used Icovia, like many other retailers, so you have like some retailers that have an Icovia catalog that includes their items. And then the company I worked for at the time, our items were not in our, like we had the broad Icovia. Right. I think it was when I was leaving, they had just started to build out a catalog with Icovia. And that was something that was already like years in the making. So I know it does take some time if Icovia operates the same way Roomstyler does, because furniture retailers are always changing their catalog. Right. So it would it would have to be like a hand in hand with the buyers and
it's very labor intensive.
It just made my head hurt. I didn't mean to do that. But what I wanted to also show was, so with leaving that open, once you refresh it, it'll show the next render.
Perfect.
So, and then you would just download that. So I always leave this kind of just open in the background.
In case you want to take some more pictures while you're putting it together.
It's literally like a little photo shoot. This is the fun part. So now I'm going to open up all of my renders. This one is the room when I just had the bed against the window as a zoom mode. So this is the zoom camera, and you see kind of how it distorts the room. It just made it look super long. And I mean, it is a long room, but not the way it looks in this photo. This particular one is, move the bed, drapes are put in. Oh, I did want to touch on curtains, only because the drapes, similar to the rugs, you cannot resize, but unlike the rugs, it's a smaller assortment. So this is another rendering I grabbed with all, like, so you see that the lights were on at full power, just different angles. And then like, these are the ones I just did with you guys with like lights off and things like that. So now we have these 5 images. We are going to jump now into Keynote. Because I know some of you are PC users, I did check and the functions are the same.
Perfect.
So it's not like Keynote just has this completely, like, it's just the operating system that's different. Right. But the interfaces are very, very similar enough that whatever I show in Keynote, you will be able to replicate in PowerPoint. But if you do hit a snag,
hop in the Design+Style Club and just I'll be up.
So now we are in Keynote. Are you seeing my Keynote?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I always just have a presentation template that I just start new presentations from. So this happens to be a blank one. So now we are in Keynote, especially if you're going to be using this for video. When you're starting your template, you would do it as a wide template versus as a normal template. Like if you want to put this in video.
Because so the video screen shape is
wider.
Longer and wider. More like, think of like a widescreen TV.
Exactly. But if it was just like a presentation for your client, normal would totally be fine because that's what it was once in before I moved it. Okay, there we go. So you guys see the conceptual space plan? This was nothing to scale. It was literally just like if I freehanded this on a napkin, just so they could see how things were going to be kind of defined, and we're walking through the plan. So my particular branding, I use like a font that has like kind of that handwritten feel of like brush strokes. But this was really just basic shapes, and then I changed the stroke of the line. So instead of using a solid line, I changed a brush stroke. But this is all just squares and rectangles. Once I made this, I grouped them all together, and then I typed this up with the font that I wanted, and then we go to animate. I chose for the picture the wipe animate. So that is where that activity comes in. If you are, so the 3 options are build in, which means how it shows up. Build out means how it leaves. And action means just what it does like in that moment. If anyone recalls in my video, it was a blank screen and then this appeared. So that's where you would use a build in versus an action.
Gotcha.
The next page is a little more stuff. And these also are all different animations, so that build in. So the page starts with that static conceptual plan. I chose the items from when we were shopping around. I kind of put them in here where like we thought we might use them. And then I just added build-in options to all of them. I knew I wanted them all to appear the same way. So I was able to literally just select all of the items, just kind of go through, select all of them, and then apply that same kind of dissolve. Depending on how you're presenting to your client, and then what you're going to be doing with this afterwards, you're going to choose like the effects that you want, but there are a lot. You can get as festive as you do or do not want to get.
Just play around with it and figure out what it is that you like for your own personal.
Exactly, like branding. What suits your brand, what suits the project, all that jazz. So that's all that's happening on this. These are all build-ins. This one, because I made the space plan using the Roomstyler, I chose to show the overhead shot of the Roomstyler floor plan, which is scaled. I could have also grabbed my Icovia floor plan if I wanted to, but this just looks prettier, to be honest. It was just a prettier, like it for a client to go from seeing this to this, it's like, oh, it's amazing. They feel special. Again, these are all just build-ins. So like for me personally, for like words, I always use the typewriter build-in. So these things kind of come in randomly. I resize them into squares just for like a cleaner look. And this looks like it was me typing it in. And then the same one, this one's just another building. It was just more of the items from the shopping list. And then the last slide is where you see a build in and build out. So I had this build in, it appears. So the build in and build outs always look messy because you're seeing everything at once before they start to do something.
Right.
So like you're seeing words on top of the picture and you're like, Albie, I can't read the words. That's stupid. But it doesn't stay that way. So this builds in and then it builds. This is on the screen, and then when it's leaving, our faces, there we go. When it's leaving is when the words build. This builds out, and when it's leaving, the words build in.
Right.
So the preview is that as it's leaving, the words appear. So it never appears this way. So those are the slides. I'm just going to add a blank slide to this one. You would just drag the image into there and it would be the same. So I didn't do anything special to get the images from Roomstyler to Keynote, except literally just downloading the images,
right,
and then dragging
them in like you would any other pictures.
Any other picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can play around with the order they appear, if they appear together. So with the build means they would do that together. It's not as hard as it seems. It's just time.
Right. It's just playing around with it and figuring out exactly what fits best for you.
Yes. Once you're done in your keynote, whatever your presentation is, if you're literally just using this for presentation purposes, you can export it to a PDF.
Right.
You can export it to PowerPoint. Like, or you can export it to individual images. But obviously, since it's animated, we definitely don't want that.
Right.
For movie purposes, you would export it to QuickTime. It would basically make a movie of everything, all those animations. Mm-hmm. So you definitely want to, before I export it, you definitely want to kind of hit play and then make sure it's, doing all the things you want it to do, moving in all the ways you want it to move. I always format it in the highest, which is 1080p. You leave it at self-playing, so it'll know to just kind of keep going from slide to slide, animation to animation. Next, and then I'm just gonna put this as the demo and put it on my desktop, and then we're exporting it. Once it exports it, I will open that on my desktop so you can see that it made it a movie.
And then PowerPoint has a similar feature, right?
Yes, it's exactly the same export. The only thing that may be different is it may not say QuickTime. It would say whatever the PC.
Right.
I think it's no, it's not Windows Movie Maker. Actually, QuickTime might be on PC now, I think.
I think sometimes it is, sometimes it's not.
I feel like now it is. Yeah. The last time I used a PC was easily over 10 years ago. But I feel like now it is, because the other side of my computer does run Windows, and I feel like I do see it in there.
Right.
So this is the exported movie of just the slideshow. So like literally just your slideshow kind of going through. You haven't edited anything in terms of like what was on my YouTube or anything like that. But this allows you to see it as a movie format, which can be edited for YouTube. So this is, you should be seeing the movie playing right now.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just it's a minute long. So we're just gonna fast forward through this, girl. But it's basically everything that I walk through, and then boom. This is the funnest part, because this is the visibility content part. This is the part that chances are has nothing to do with the client, and this is really now you just repurposing your project on your socials. I use iMovie. I know on Windows, I think the built-in is Windows Movie Maker, but I do know a few people use Filmora and or Camtasia.
I use Camtasia for all of ours. It's really easy to put stuff in and out. And
yeah, like those are the ones I hear. I don't even think anyone uses Windows Movie Maker anymore.
I can't even find it on my new PC. So
fair warning, it may look like a lot. Don't be afraid. It's all good. So this is my iMovie. So this first half of the movie is literally just all photos that I had grabbed from that project. So from that project, I know at least 50, but then as I went through and did the blog post, I took more detailed shots. So there might be another like dozen-ish. Right. So these are just all images. These aren't video specific files. These were all just images that I dropped into iMovie. When you grab those images, I think in one of your interviews with, I don't remember his name. He did someone's website and he used it. Yes. And this is what he was speaking of when he took like images on one of the website examples and she made video. So it was like just this Ken Burns feature. So it just moved and she was just talking over it. So that's what this was. Mm-hmm. So these were literally just still images, but adding that feature, they look like they were part of a video. So even, so that was the part I really wanted to hit on. Even if you're not video specific, and that's why I said don't be afraid, you can literally just import all of your images, make them move with these boxes pretty much, and it looks like you've done like a walkthrough of your space, so to speak.
I love it. I think that is just,
and the QuickTime that I exported from Keynote is this girl here in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's literally just that export from Keynote, a lot of images spliced together. So this is all Keynote and images, and then I always have a template for my YouTube.
And then one real quick question. I know for Camtasia, it saves as a project and you have to export it. You have to share it to your computer in another file. As the video or the audio, I'm assuming that it is the same thing with...
Yes. So with this one, I did all my splicing. I added music and sound effects and all that jazz. I always share to file so that as you could share directly to YouTube or wherever. I always share the file so that I have that file to just kind of do what I want with. It can sit on my hard drive and then I can export it. I can upload it to YouTube if I wanted to upload it to Facebook, if I wanted to trim it and upload to Instagram. So that's the benefit of doing it as a file. And then just kind of playing around, and there's no right or wrong answer. Mm-hmm. I just played around with how I wanted to convey the project.
I love it. So anybody, I know that this podcast went out to TDN. If you're not already aware of who Design+Style is, you can find our group on Facebook. It is Design+Style Club. You can always join. Let us know how you found us, because we're always curious.
LB, you're so awesome.
Thank you.
Love this. And if anybody...
Please promise you'll come and share how to do a video. Yes. Because
absolutely. I love video.
I think that would be like, so this would be cool, like a cool part 1, part 2, because as part of visibility, as part of the new eDesign platform, and everything trending towards eDesign now. Mm-hmm. It's not as new a concept as it was. It's becoming really more mainstream as people get busier and more comfortable online. It's great just for people like you that, you said you just, that by choice. This is the business model you've chosen. I think it's great for people to add on to their existing business model. I even do a hybrid of it for people that are focused on affordability, where I see them in person, but all of the rest of the deliverables are done online. So there's a lot of different ways to use this, and this has just been such a blessing to everybody that is on here.
And there's no excuse for not having something on your website now, people.
And that's the other thing, like let's say you're just like, you know what, I don't really necessarily want to do e-design, or I don't want to be on YouTube or whatever. Like this just is like, this started for me as just content for my website.
Right.
I didn't have a portfolio page. But I wanted a portfolio page. So whether it's because you can't get after photos, or like you do e-design and just after photos don't exist.
You've got it right there.
It's also just a great way, you know, as part of showing people what your process is like. So if you're not just like the video that I just showed, I don't talk in that video at all. And like, so I have some where I explain things, and then there's that one where it's just really nice music playing in the background.
Yep. When I saw this on your YouTube channel, I almost fainted, and I reached out to you immediately and shared your video, and everyone went crazy over it.
Even if you're doing this just to kind of play around, like I said, I started by just taking old e-design projects, playing around, and then obviously people receive them well on my website and my YouTube channel. But I've seen a lot of chatter around like hiring people for renderings, or do I need to learn SketchUp, or do I need to do this? Like I said, it is a conceptual platform, but I definitely feel that it is great for like just empowering designers to feel like I can like elevate whatever I'm offering my client in a different way. I can't tell you how many times people like reference Fixer Upper, for example, because they love the design phase when Joanna's sitting at the computer.
They want that.
And
this
so
is an
people
easy
just
way to
love
give
that.
it to them.
Yeah, and like you said elevate, and when you use the word elevate, it means that you can charge more than some of those third party.
Using Roomstyler has just made me feel so like I can really make your project feel like I'm gonna be there with you, even though I'm not.
Yeah.
So like that's the other piece of it, like just really kind of owning that. Like I've seen a lot of designers in the group kind of be scared of renderings. And like I said, it is not SketchUp, it is not Revit. So if you need certain types of renderings, you're gonna have to turn to those softwares. But if you just really want to be able to elevate that client experience, make the client feel special, build your portfolio, and just kind of own your ish.
That is just, that's it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And we do want to let you know that we do, for everybody, we understand, we talk about visibility and all the different ways that you can get visible. I like to do e-design. I like to add personal videos of me in the e-designs where I'm using the 2D boards, but I'm talking through the 2D boards. So everything, it's whatever your comfort level is, your business model, there's no one perfect way to do it. If you are having trouble using video, getting on video, using live streams, getting out there, posting, showing your face, Dixie and I have a course coming up, or actually the card is open now for Visibility Warrior. You're also going to get Misha Hetty's book on photographing your own interiors. So we've bundled with her. It's really, really great. It's a 10-week masterclass, and you also get personal time. We call it 2-on-1 instead of 1-on-1 time with Dixie and I. You get a session with us. So we will drop the link and share that in the email with the replay as well.